first go, won't be too good probably.
Yeah. So John, this is your boat, the Sea Shag. Now it was quite before its time really. Tell us about the boat.
Yes, I had this boat designed 40 years ago now. It's an aluminium boat. It's 34 feet in length, 12 feet of beam, and it had one 210 horsepower Caterpillar V8 driving a 13-inch jet unit. And when it was put in and was to pull water skiers from Hamilton's, that's Sir William Hamilton or Bill Hamilton, it was a big thing. But as it turned out, it was a wee bit of a white elephant. It didn't work properly, so we had to put another jet unit and another motor. So we ended up with 420 horsepower and 2 jet units. Then it was shifted from here, came to Haast by Durham's Transport, and it was unloaded by Naylor Love at the Okuru. They're the people that built the Haast Hotel. It was taken to Jackson's Bay, and it's always been a bit of a family joke amongst us. Our accountant said to my mother and father, "Do you know what John owes?" And Dad said, "I have an idea." And Peter said, $98,000. This $1,000 has always been a bit of a joke. And he said to my mother, "Myra, I don't want to hear from you until they've caught their first ton." There'd been Dad and myself. And Mum rang in 4 days and we'd done it. But that was, in those days, that was 40 odd bags of fish. And they weren't live like export to Japan and China like they do today. That was just, we tailed at sea. So then we fished at Jackson's Bay to Martin's Bay, which is just on the north side of Milford, for 10 years, and then we shifted from there, and I did 8 years in Fiordland, based at Dusky Sound, but working north of that from Dags, and then going back from Dags right down to Chalky, Breaksea Preservation, and ended up at Persica Point. And unfortunately I had a bit of an accident and it was lost at sea, but it was retrieved. And it was always sort of said amongst the fishermen, I knew he'd tip it over, and all I could say is, well, it took 18 years.
Well, we have a look at some of these photos that we've got, John.
Gold.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just one. That's actually in Dusky Sound there. We'd been there for 9 months a year, and it's just, I don't know, squirting a bit of water out the back, I suppose.
Showing how the jet unit
Yeah,
works.
showing how the jet unit would work.
Yeah. Now this is a great photo. Tell us about that.
This one here, Jackie, that's coming over the gates of the Haast Bridge on Durham's Transport. We had to have a pilot vehicle in front of it, and the mast was taken off it. But we, no, it means a lot to me, really. Seeing we were the first ones to pioneer that type of fishing, you know. There was other jet boats around, but they were just jet boats, not much bigger than a river jet boat. But this was a lot bigger.
Right. Let's have a look at the next.
Oh, this will be in Dusky Sound. What happens when you fish for 8 to 9 months of the year, when you've finished fishing, it's a bit different now because it's all under quota system and you sort of know who's who. But when there was a lot of boats around, there was a wee bit of pirating went on. So you used to go into a little calm bay like I am in there, and you throw the pots over, and we knew where they were, and then you could pick them up with a grapnel. So we're just picking up pots that have been there from the year before, and the reason they don't rust is because you put an anode in them, so that's why they look so fresh.
They do, don't they?
And that's just a pot full of fish that. Yeah, well, we were fairly lucky. You can see that pot there, 3'6" square. I think they're about 14 to 15 inches high, but that would have 2 traps in it. You'll see the round traps with their prongs going down so they can't get out. But the fishing as today is actually better under the quota management numbers than I last fished.
Right. So what about volumes of crayfish that you were taking out of here in a season? And tell us a wee bit about that.
Well, I was, when it was always a secret. There would have been a lot more fishermen around if some of us had never let on what we caught. But when the quota system came in, I was the only thing I can sort of, I don't say brag about, but quite proud of, that I had the second highest in New Zealand. Joe Cave from Stewart Island with a lot bigger boat than I had. He got first and we got second, and that figure stood at 29 tonnes. So
it's huge, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. The wee boat has caught an awful lot of fish, and It's after we tipped it upside down and it was floated and taken back to Bluff. It's still fishing as today and still catching crayfish.
So it's still operating today.
Still operating today.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
who's got it?
I'm not sure. I'm not. But they've changed that. They've taken the jet units out and put propellers in, which are more efficient, or a propeller, should I say, in one engine. So and changed the wheelhouse and.
Right, let's have a look at this next boat. Can you tell us what's
Oh,
happening here?
yeah,
Some of the hazards of fishing,
Yeah,
obviously.
there's Michael Bowen there. He's what actually happens is we fished extremely close, and quite often after a storm or during a storm, your rope would get flicked up over rocks. So the idea was you have to go ashore when it was flat, like it is today, and retrieve them. We were using 100 rolls of rope a year, which was costing us $32,000 just in rope, 40mm rope. I mean, other fishermen didn't do that. It was just that we sort of had the name of being, I don't say cowboys, but we did push it a bit, I suppose.
Looking at this next photo, yeah, interesting. All about how it was done and how you got the crayfish out of some of these areas. Tell us about this one.
That's right. Well, that's a float plane owned by Water Wings, Chris Willits, and he'd come into Dusky Sound where our barge was, and we'd because the Department of Conservation wouldn't let us go ashore. We actually applied for that, but the Marine Department said yes, but the department said no. So we were committed to flying it out because we didn't have big freezer space like a displacement boat. So that fish would be flown out as soon as we had around about 15 or 16 bags, and then when the weather was rough, we used a helicopter.
Mm-hmm.
So they would take 18 bags on a 500.
Right.
Yeah.
And this last photo here, this is where you were based down there, isn't it? Tell us about this.
Yes, so that barge actually that barge came from Tiwai Point, Tiwai Smelter, and then I carried that whole barge down in that little boat, Sea Shag. We carted that down, and it was all on panels, and we erected it. We had a diesel stove, a flush toilet that went into the sea, and there's the IVA is against the. We're not actually there because I'm taking the photo, but the IVA is against us. Then there's a boat called the Triton, and then there's another boat called the Annie, and that's in what they call Luncheon Cove, and ahead of those, probably about 300 metres from the bow of those boats is where Captain Cook came in the Endeavour and built the ship when he had to sail out. So it's quite a very popular place for tourists.
Right. So you've obviously had quite a long time, quite a career fishing then, and thoroughly enjoy it.
I did, yes. I wouldn't go back. I've been there and done that, as they say. but I just my mother. She always said, well, when I said I'd finish, she said, now I can tell you how pleased I was that you'd actually had given up fishing, because it was like that big boat that you can see there. Well, he'd be drawing probably 6 to 7 feet of water. Well, we only drew 2 feet and no propeller, so you can imagine we had the advantage to fish extremely close, which is obviously extremely hazardous.
Yeah. Oh no, that's great. Thanks for that, John.
Thank you.